You don't even think about that. It's something you do every day and you just do it.
Troy Landry's boat was supposed to hold tools, bait, and supplies for hunting gators, but what was inside surprised everyone. Something dark and unsettling was found, raising questions about the famous swamp hunter. Was it an accident, or was the fearless Swamp King using illegal means to get famous? Join us as we uncover the truth behind this terrifying discovery. The 2024 alligator tagging incident. It was a dark night on Lake Pelord, waters as still as glass under the heavy bayou sky. Hidden in the silence, two agents from the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, LDWF, sat in waiting, their eyes fixed on white-flagged lines cutting through the water like quiet traps. They were on a sting operation, triggered by a tip that someone had been placing unauthorized alligator lines in the lake. Lake Pelord in St. Mary Parish is usually just another peaceful part of the swamp world. But that night it was a stage, and the agents were the unseen audience. They had been watching the lines for hours, waiting to see who would return. Every ripple, every shift in the wind, every movement on the water made the moment feel tense. Then, not long before midnight, a boat slowly came into view. The agents leaned forward. They recognized the man at the center of the deck. Troy Landry, the famous gator hunter known across the country for his long seasons on a reality show, was standing right there in the glow of the boat's light. Alongside him were two companions and an unidentified cameraman, which made the scene even more intense. Cameras meant this might have been part of filming, or at least tied to the show's world. The agents stayed hidden as the boat drifted toward one of the flagged lines. The hook dipped, then jerked. Something powerful pulled beneath the water. The men worked together, muscles tight, as they hauled up a large alligator. In any other setting, this might have looked like a normal day of work for Troy, the king of the swamp, pulling up yet another giant. But here, the location and the timing made everything dangerous. This was exactly the line the agents had been watching, and this was exactly the moment they needed to see. The agents moved in, revealing themselves and ordering the boat to stop. What had started as a simple catch instantly turned into a confrontation with serious consequences. The swamp, which seconds earlier felt like a backdrop for a routine hunt, suddenly felt smaller, colder, and more threatening. Troy told the agents he had permission to hunt on that land, and the agents checked with the owner. That part was true. But permission to step on property is not the same as permission to tag alligators. In Louisiana, every area is assigned specific alligator tags. These tags match the region and must be attached immediately after a catch. The rules are strict because they protect the population and keep the ecosystem balanced. Troy was not hunting with the correct tags for that lake. He showed the agents tags that he said had been gifted to him, explaining that the alligators he caught came from another region where those tags were valid. His explanation sounded uncertain, and the agents' faces showed that they weren't convinced. While talking, Troy admitted something more worrying. He said that earlier, before the agents appeared, he had a dead alligator, a stiff one, on his line. He explained that he had cut the animal loose and let it float away. The moment he said that, the atmosphere shifted again. Cutting an alligator loose is illegal. Releasing a dead one is even worse. It creates confusion in population counts, messes with tracking, and breaks the core rules of responsible harvesting. The agents needed proof, so they searched the area. After a while, they spotted a large shape drifting in the dark water. There it was, a dead alligator floating near the surface. It had the same kind of line Troy's boat had been using. It was like the swamp itself was revealing what had been hidden. The evidence was undeniable. The dead alligator made everything clear. That discovery sealed the case. The agents cited him for two violations: harvesting an alligator with improper tags and releasing a dead alligator. Each citation carried a possible fine that could reach around $950, along with the possibility of up to 120 days in jail. The agents also seized the alligator hide, the boat, and the engine. The shock was not in the paperwork. The shock was in how quickly everything collapsed. The simple act of lifting a line from the water had turned into a legal disaster. And for Troy, someone whose entire public image depended on respecting the swamp, the laws, and the traditions of Louisiana hunting, this was more than a bad night. It was a breaking point. When word spread, People expected a long explanation or at least a comment that matched the seriousness of the moment. But when he was asked about the charges, Troy barely responded. He said he had nothing to say and then changed the subject to a small speeding ticket he had received earlier that month. That reaction confused many people, adding even more tension to the situation. It felt like a dismissal, like brushing aside something that was far more important than a traffic violation. The truth is that the swamp has rules, and those rules matter. Every tag has a meaning. Every law protects something living. When someone breaks those rules, especially someone who represents the culture so publicly, the damage runs deep. This incident wasn't just about a missing tag or a dead alligator floating in the dark. It was about trust. For years, viewers had seen Troy as a symbol of honest, hard, traditional swamp living. They watched him teach younger hunters, respect the land, and honor the ways passed down through generations. So when the evidence showed a dead alligator cut loose, the shock was powerful. The moment shattered the image many people held. But the deeper effect was on the swamp itself. The bayou doesn't care about fame, the water doesn't care about television, the wildlife doesn't care about reputation. When a rule is broken, the swamp holds on to it like a stain in the mud. That night became one of those stains, a moment that could not be undone. The sting operation, the hidden lines, the sudden confrontation, the discovery of the floating alligator, all of it made the incident feel terrifying. It was not terrifying because of danger or violence, but because of how quickly trust, tradition, and identity can fall apart when one rule is broken. Despite the advantages of being in the spotlight, few people ever saw the pressures that came with it. The pressures of fame. Life in the Louisiana swamp has always been hard. But for Troy Landry, it became something even more complicated the moment cameras started following him. Hunting alligators used to be a simple part of his life, shaped by early mornings, long hours, and the fierce heat of the bayou. But once he became a reality TV figure, every trip into the swamp carried an extra weight, a quiet pressure that never went away. Troy no longer hunted only for food or work. He hunted for an audience. He hunted for millions of viewers who waited to see him pull in giant gators, shout commands, and face danger with a steady hand. The swamp was no longer just a home. It had become a stage, and every move he made was watched, replayed, and remembered. That is where the tension began to build. When a cameraman steps onto a boat, everything changes. A normal catch suddenly needs to look exciting. A simple day of scouting the waters needs to become a story. A hunt that might have been quiet and slow now must be thrilling enough to hold a viewer's attention. The line between real hunting and entertainment becomes blurry, and that blur can push even a seasoned hunter into risky territory. For someone like Troy, who learned everything from tradition and family, this new world is not always easy. He comes from a long line of hunters who relied on the swamp to survive. They respected the land, followed the old ways, and treated the animals with a certain honor. But television asks for something different. It asks for action, drama, and big moments that keep people glued to their screens. That kind of demand can pull a man in two directions at once. While the cameras demand excitement, Louisiana's laws demand control. Every alligator must be tagged correctly. Every tag belongs to a specific region. Every season has strict limits meant to protect the population. These rules are not simple suggestions. They are laws built to protect the swamp itself. And as years pass, these laws grow tighter because habitats are shrinking and wildlife needs more care. For older hunters, the new rules can feel overwhelming. The traditions they grew up with do not always match the paperwork, restrictions, and boundaries required today. A hunter who once followed instinct must now follow regulations that change from place to place. It is easy to fall behind, easy to make mistakes, and easy to feel trapped between survival and strict rules. Add to that the pressure of being famous and the weight becomes even heavier. Fame looks bright on screen, but behind it is a constant worry. Fans expect perfection. Producers expect excitement. Viewers expect a hero. And all these expectations sit on Troy's shoulders every time he steps into a boat. That would be hard enough for any man, but Troy's life behind the scenes has carried even more stress. He faced a serious health battle, one that reminded him that even the strongest swamp hunter is still human. He carries the pain of watching a young grandson fight a dangerous illness, something that no amount of toughness can protect a family from. And along with these emotional burdens comes the public attention that never sleeps. Every mistake becomes news. Every slip becomes judgment. Every action is watched by people who do not know the full story. This mix of family worries, health struggles, fame pressure, and strict laws forms a storm inside a man. It can push him to move faster than he should, take risks he normally would avoid, or make choices he believes will keep him afloat. The swamp may be rough, but the emotional load he carries is even rougher. And when a person is pulled in so many directions, even a simple day on the water can turn into a moment of trouble. The truth is, Troy is not just dealing with one problem. He is dealing with a world that has changed around him. The swamp is no longer the quiet place of his childhood. The hunts are no longer private moments of skill and grit. The work is bigger, louder, and watched by millions. And the pressures are stacked on him like heavy weights he cannot set down. Inside all of this, the heart of the tension becomes clear. He is trying to be two things at once. He wants to be the honest, skilled hunter his family raised. He also wants to be the strong, fearless figure the world expects to see on television. These two roles do not always fit together, and that conflict can twist every decision he makes. However, the pressure wasn't the only thing Troy had to face while in the spotlight. The silent storm surrounding Troy Landry. The fallout from the 2024 tagging incident did not end on the water. It followed Troy Landry into every corner of his life, pressing against his image, his career, and the hunting culture he had represented for more than a decade on television. For years, many viewers saw him as the fearless swamp hunter with a warm Cajun heart, a man who worked hard, loved his family deeply, and stayed true to tradition. But once the scandal surfaced, that picture no longer looked untouched. A crack had formed, and through it, people began to ask harder questions. The idea that a man so respected could be linked to a tagging violation shook fans. It made some wonder whether the heroic swamp legend was always as careful and honest as he appeared on screen. Others defended him instantly, saying the pressure of cameras, tight schedules, and constant expectations could push anyone into mistakes. But even supporters could not deny that the situation changed something. It forced the public to look at the difference between the man on television and the man outside the spotlight, especially when legal trouble entered the story. For the show itself, the situation created a wave of uncertainty. Troy had always been one of the strongest faces of swamp people, a central figure who carried the heart of the series. If the case grew more serious, with hearings, fines, or even the threat of jail time, the entire brand could feel the impact. Reality shows depend on trust that what viewers see is grounded in truth. When one of the biggest stars becomes the center of a scandal about tags, rules, and proper hunting conduct, the production team has to choose how to respond. Do they stand by him fully? Do they adjust storylines? Do they distance the brand from the problem? No matter the choice, the ripple would not be small. Beyond the show, the incident also pushed the spotlight onto swamp hunting culture itself. For generations, hunters in Louisiana followed the seasons, respected the land, and handed down knowledge from parent to child. But over time, laws tightened, habitats changed, and the world started looking closer at hunting practices. With Troy's case in public view, people outside the swamp began paying more attention to tagging rules, conservation limits, and the responsibilities of licensed hunters. Some believed this could lead to even deeper checks on hunting shows, asking whether entertainment ever pushes hunters toward risky shortcuts. Others feared new rules might make traditional hunting more complicated and less understood by the wider public. Inside Troy's life, the storm felt even heavier. The past few years had already been filled with strain, recovery after health issues, the emotional weight of a sick grandchild, and the pressure of holding a family together had taken a toll before the incident even happened. Now, with legal trouble added to everything else, the emotional load rose even higher. For Troy, this period became more than a legal problem. It turned into a personal crossroads. Should he step back from the spotlight to rebuild himself quietly? Yet the life waiting outside that spotlight carried its heavy challenges. Personal struggles. Long before the tagging scandal, long before the public debates and the questions about his choices, Troy Landry was already fighting a much harder battle. It was a battle that had nothing to do with cameras, boats, gators, or fame. It was a fight inside his body and inside his family. These private struggles shaped him far more than any reality show ever could, and they explain why every mistake, every slip, and every moment of weakness hits so much deeper. This is the part of Troy's story that many people never see, the part that turns a television legend into a human being carrying heavy burdens. In the year 2022, Troy faced one of the biggest challenges of his life when he learned he had prostate cancer. For a man known for strength, endurance, and bravery, the diagnosis felt like a blow that could knock anyone off balance. Doctors later confirmed that the disease had damaged his prostate severely, leaving him with no choice but to undergo surgery. Even for someone as tough as Troy, surgery like that brings fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of the recovery, fear of whether life will ever feel normal again. The operation was a major one, and the recovery was slow. Yet, what surprised many people was how determined Troy remained throughout the entire process. Instead of stepping back completely, he pushed himself little by little, slowly rebuilding his energy, his confidence, and his sense of purpose. By the end of that same year, he had recovered enough to return to the swamp and continue filming. By the year 2023, he was fully back on Swamp People, chasing gators once again. This return was not just a physical comeback, it was a symbol of grit. It showed that beneath the tough Cajun hunter the world knows, there is a man who refuses to surrender, even when life attacks him at his core. His health journey made him more human, more relatable, and more fragile than most viewers ever realized. When someone beats cancer, even after feeling the threat of close danger, they carry a new kind of weight, the weight of knowing how easily life can change. But the struggles in Troy's life did not end with his battle. At home, his family faced heartbreak that touched them all deeply. His grandson, little Crew Landry, was born with a rare liver disease called biliary atresia. This condition affects the liver's ability to drain bile, causing serious damage over time and often leading to the need for a transplant. For any family, hearing that a child needs such a major medical intervention is devastating. For someone as family-centered as Troy, it was crushing. Watching a newborn fight through a life-threatening illness can shake even the strongest person. It brings fear, helplessness, and frustration. It forces a family to stay strong even when their hearts feel as if they are breaking. For Troy, this was one of the hardest parts of his life, a reminder that no amount of strength on television can shield someone from real pain. Every hospital update, every doctor's visit, every moment of uncertainty only added to the emotional weight he was already carrying. These two battles, one in his body and one in his grandson's, sat underneath everything he did. They shaped his mood, his decisions, and his outlook on life. To viewers, Troy was the fearless Swamp King. But off-camera, he was a grandfather afraid of losing a child he loved, and a man who had walked through illness himself not long before. The pressure of supporting his family, providing for them, staying strong for them, and continuing to work could have pushed anyone to their limits. Now let's take a look at the costs Troy has to pay for being in the spotlight. Secrets behind Troy Landry's legend. Life in the swamp has always been hard. For generations, families like Troy Landry's have relied on the land, the water, and the creatures within it to survive. Every day is a test of skill, patience, and courage. For Troy, the challenge is never just about hunting gators. The swamp is full of hidden risks, complicated rules, and unexpected dangers. Being part of the reality TV show Swamp People magnifies all of these challenges, casting light on the world while exposing its shadows. While Troy himself has faced legal troubles, health battles, and family stress, he is also surrounded by a network of people whose struggles create tension and danger by association. Some cast members of the show have been involved in controversies or criminal charges over the years. These events do not always implicate Troy directly, yet being connected to that world means living with the consequences of others' actions. Every arrest, every fine, every scandal among his colleagues reminds him that the swamp is morally complicated. The presence of legal trouble in his circle, even if not his own, is a constant reminder of how easy it is for a reputation to be affected. It is guilt by proximity, exposure to risk simply by association. In such an environment, every choice becomes critical. One wrong move, or even one association, can become public, dragging attention and pressure onto someone who has worked hard to maintain a steady image. For Troy, this means balancing loyalty to friends and family with careful awareness of the law, the camera, and the world beyond the swamp. Family troubles add another layer to this complex life. Extended family members, including his son, have faced their challenges. Legal problems, financial stress, or personal conflicts within the family create ripple effects that reach Troy. Even if he is not directly responsible for these issues, they influence the decisions he makes, the way he reacts to pressure, and the way the public perceives him. Life in the swamp is not only about survival of the individual, it is survival of the family and the community. In a world where every action is noticed, every choice is judged, and every mistake can become amplified, maintaining balance becomes a daily struggle. This environment is morally ambiguous. Hunters must navigate strict state regulations, such as tagging rules and seasonal limits, while also working in a culture that prizes toughness, tradition, and resourcefulness. In addition to legal pressures, there are economic pressures. Many hunters rely on hunting as a livelihood, and the swamp does not forgive mistakes. Limited opportunities, financial constraints, and the need to provide for family can push even the most careful people toward risky decisions. For Troy, the weight of responsibility is enormous. He carries not only his burdens, but also the expectations of the show, his fans, and his extended family. Being in the public eye magnifies every decision. Fame brings opportunities, but it also brings scrutiny. Viewers watch closely, noticing every success and failure. When scandals touch other cast members, even if Troy is not involved, the public may judge him by association. This pressure forces constant vigilance and careful thought about where he goes, who he trusts, and what he allows to appear on camera. There is no room for careless behavior in a world that blends survival, entertainment, and legal boundaries. The swamp itself is unforgiving. It is physically dangerous, emotionally challenging, and morally complex. It demands respect, intelligence, and courage. It also carries the weight of history and tradition, which adds another layer of expectation. In this environment, Troy has learned that being a successful hunter is not just about catching alligators. It is about navigating relationships, protecting family, following laws, and surviving scrutiny from all sides. Every day is a test, not only of skill, but of character and judgment. But is Troy more concerned about his passion or his fame? Keep on watching to find out more. Caught between the swamp and the spotlight, Troy Landry is more than a name on a television screen. He is a symbol of a way of life that has survived for generations in the swamps and bayous of Louisiana. Long before cameras captured him wrestling alligators and navigating the dangerous waters, he was a boy learning the rhythms of the swamp from his family. Born into a lineage of fishermen, trappers, and hunters, Troy grew up with the swamp as his classroom. He learned the skills of the trade not from a manual, but from watching, imitating, and practicing alongside those who had lived off the land for decades. Every movement, every instinct, every careful step into the water was shaped by generations who understood the swamp in a way most people could never imagine. Alligator hunting in particular was not a hobby or a profession. It was a responsibility carried in his blood, a legacy he was born to uphold. As Troy grew, so did his skill. His knowledge of the waterways, the habits of gators, and the intricacies of survival in harsh conditions became exceptional. When the reality TV series Swamp People began, it was natural that he would rise to the forefront. He became the face of the show, a man viewers called the King of the Swamp. The title reflected more than hunting success. Troy was known for filling more hunting tags than almost any other swamper in Louisiana, a feat that required skill, courage, and patience. He did not just hunt for sport. He hunted to survive, to provide, and to honor the traditions passed down through generations. The public image of Troy Landry is striking and memorable. He is seen as a hard-living, no-nonsense Cajun swamp hunter. Viewers are drawn to the authenticity he brings to the screen. His hands are calloused, his face lined from years under the sun, and his voice carries authority earned from experience. He represents toughness, tradition, and the raw reality of surviving in a harsh environment. To millions of fans, he is not just a character, he is a living embodiment of swamp culture, a bridge between a disappearing way of life and the modern world. His image is compelling because it feels real, rooted in history, and tempered by the demands of nature. Yet Troy Landry is not a simple figure. Beneath the surface of the television persona lies a man facing real-world struggles and moral dilemmas. The same hands that catch giant alligators have also felt the pressure of health scares, the stress of family crises, and the demands of public expectation. Life off camera is complicated. Health issues have tested his resilience. Family responsibilities weigh heavily on him, particularly the care of loved ones facing medical challenges. Financial pressures, sometimes intensified by the need to maintain his livelihood and the expectations of a television career, add another layer of stress. These pressures raise questions about the choices Troy makes. When he faces a situation where rules are unclear or boundaries are tested, is he acting out of negligence, confusion, or desperation? Is he driven by the need to feed his family, to deliver dramatic footage for the camera, or simply to survive in a world that is unforgiving? The complexity of his situation reminds viewers that morality is not always black and white. Survival, tradition, and entertainment intersect in ways that can blur lines, forcing difficult decisions in moments that are often recorded for all to see. This moral ambiguity makes Troy's story compelling. It allows viewers to see him not only as a hero, but as a human being navigating choices that are often far from simple. It raises questions about responsibility, conservation, and the cost of living a life under constant scrutiny. When a man carries the weight of a legend, when his actions are both personal and symbolic, the stakes are high. Every decision he makes can ripple through his family, his community, his career, and the way the swamp itself is perceived by the world. The possibility of redemption is also central to Troy's story. Even in the face of mistakes or misjudgments, there is a chance to confront deeper truths about tradition, responsibility, and the balance between survival and morality. His life invites reflection on the value of learning from missteps, of honoring heritage while adapting to modern pressures, and of understanding the full weight of fame and expectation. It challenges viewers to consider how much of life is about the choices we make when the spotlight is on us, and how much is about navigating the private struggles no one else can see. Troy Landry's journey is ongoing. The swamp has shaped him, fame has tested him, and personal trials have tempered him. The man is as real as the legend he represents, living in the tension between tradition and modernity, survival and morality, expectation and reality. When survival, legacy, and fame collide, the questions remain: what choices become possible? Which lines can be crossed, and which must be honored? And above all, how does a man live as both a legend and a human being at the same time? If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.